Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Amy. Thank you for sharing space with me. This is the wonderful Amy J. Wilson. That way, yes, the wonderful Amy J. Wilson, our co-host, my one of my close friends and amazing human being, and Kevin Shaw. And we are hosting your weekly empathy power up. We were out last week. We were not feeling as great, but that's okay. We're back with more energy, more
Yep.
power, more fun. This is your quick 15-minute boost of empathy for the week to get you through the week, as well as talk about some important topics and just leave some food for thought as we head into our lives. So, thank you for sharing this space with us and time, everyone. Today's topic we're talking about is how to be human at work. 2 weeks ago, when we did our previous episode, we talked about what being a human is. And we had a debate, and it was a wonderful conversation with Amy and I, where we sort of went back and forth at what does make someone uniquely human. And there's threads of imagination we pulled, empathy, taking compassion action, planning for the future, all these kind of threads that came together to understand that. But I think what's more relevant, and especially on this platform that we're talking to, is how to be human at work. So, Amy,
hmm
excited to talk about this topic.
Yes,
When you
I am
when you
too.
hear this, when you hear this question, when this comment, this statement, how to be human at work, what evokes?
I think what's interesting, it boils down to this for me is how do you like your colleagues instead of tolerating them or feeling obligated to spend time with them? You
Mm,
know?
yeah,
Um, I think that's really stands out to me is like, you know what, like do you see them not as they're in their utility, but in their humanness, right?
I
So
like that. I like how you phrase, and it's a great way to test whether or not you're in a space where you can be yourself or be human, and others can, and I think that's a great thing. To talk about this topic, I think the word I wanted to bring up is professionalism, because that
mm,
has been
yeah, yeah.
historically this idea of being professional. What does that mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And how what I believe it's a changing definition, because
Yes.
it
Yes.
was unprofessional to talk about your pregnancy. It was unprofessional to ask for needs for people with disabilities
Hmm.
decades ago,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
now that is not the case. And so this concept of professionalism that we've created, in my
Mm,
opinion, when I think about this, is it's a toxic thing that we've created, this concept of professionalism. Because what it
mm,
does is it's like you behave differently. And that's what professionalism is. Behave different
mm,
than who you
mm,
are as a person.
mm. Yeah, yeah. And I think in there is this insidious oppression
Hmm.
mindset around perfectionism. Um, I certainly found that and when I was doing consulting is that
Hmm.
we had to wear a suit every day. You had to be prim and proper. You were on client site. You had to show up and be on all the time, and you couldn't have a bad day. And like when I think about like what do people like, right, as
Hmm.
humans, right? Like people like people who act like humans, right?
Hmm.
Like who are smile, who look into your eyes when they speak to you because that shows a sign of respect and trust. And know that I'm a fallible human, right? And where I'm also, for me, it's also I'm committed to being better than I
Yeah,
was before. So
yeah.
yeah.
So I love that. I think how to be human. I think one key thing I would like to take from that is being open to growing and learning and changing. And I think that is a good part of being human at work, because change is constant, and we companies want to change fast and want to react and want to adapt. And if we allow people to be human with a growth culture, then it gets there. I love how you talked about the perfectionism, and I think professionalism is so whenever I hear the word professional, be professional, or professional, be bring a professional approach, even though the intention might not be negative, but I think the impact is harmful, and the impact is separation of who we are as a person and the work we're doing. Because it's okay. Like, as long as we are not, like, I think the fundamental things of being human in outside of work life is, like, don't do something illegal, unethical, cause harm to others, ask for consent. Those things should apply no matter what space you are in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. But what's interesting is one thing that I definitely have been thinking deeply about is ethics, right?
Mm,
And ethics, I think I've been thinking deeply about it because last year I was blessed to be in like chosen for the Stanford course, where it talks about
mhm,
ethics, public policy, and technological change.
mhm.
And we were thinking about what is our ethical and moral boundaries, right? And that's all individual, you
Mm,
know?
mhm.
So how do we, and it's like when we come into work, we show up with different values and different
Yeah.
principles,
Yes.
right? So I guess the bigger question is how might we celebrate those and make sure that you are heard and seen and, like you were saying, belonging, having a sense of belonging.
Yeah, and I think showing up to work with the same set of values you have is a privilege. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely, in our current system, it's a privilege. We cannot say be the person you are at home, be that person at work, be that awesome person at work, because
Yeah.
the system is going to either abuse you, yell at you, fire you, take your money away, all these problematic things that can happen, especially for women, especially for people of color, people with disabilities, people on the autism spectrum, all of them, if they are there, and that is fundamentally a problem. And so I do think that when we talk about how to be human at work, it needs to start first with the people who have the privilege, who
Hmm.
are able to it, because if they have the separation of who they are and with the values they come in with, first is inauthentic. I believe if you
Mhm.
are a person who values integrity as a person and you come to a workplace or a business that doesn't perform that way, maybe you should, that's a problem right there. Are you being yourself? Are
Mhm.
you being human? What does it mean to be that way?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so for me, I think people who are privileged. So I now show up to any space because I have the privilege as completely who I am with the same values.
Yeah. Yes. I think that a word that comes to mind when I think about privilege is I also think about power.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have the power within ourselves, right? And I speak about this in the book of like there's different forms of power. There's a power within ourselves to be agents of change, right? In the space. And we can step into those rooms and show up in a different way,
Hmm.
or in our very authentic way. Um, and also acknowledging the fact that systems, if the system does not allow you to show up in that way, it's really hard to do that,
Yeah.
and it isn't until, in a lot of ways, another kind of power is seeding power. Like if you
Hmm.
have it, realizing that I am not going to hoard the power, but
Hmm.
instead allow other people to speak up first, and to, simple things we talked about before about she using your pronouns,
Hmm.
and allowing that gives like a simple thing to give permission for other people to speak up who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's so important in these spaces is us understanding that each person brings their own unique perspective, right? And if we nurture that, we empower that, we treat it like it's a superpower, that person is going to deliver like a superhero. And I'll use the
Hmm.
example. So I am one of the things I believe I can do quickly is change context quickly. So I can go from task to task. So multitasking, what is multitasking? It's really going from task to task really fast. It's
Hmm.
not being able to do two things at the same time. The context of tasking is that it's a great episode on Netflix is Explained, Mind Explained, that just came out, the new
Yeah,
season. It's a great
love
episode on
it.
this as well. Um, and I can do that quickly, but my husband cannot. He needs that. He can only do one thing, and he can focus, and he does it really well. And he thought that that was a weakness. He believed
Mhm.
that that was a weakness, and so he would try to be more like me because he would see me work that way. And when I had a conversation with him, I'm like, no, actually, that's a superpower. The fact that you can
Mm.
dive in, go into the details and just focus, that is something that is valued. And so he's
Mhm.
leaned into
Mhm.
that, and it's given him this magical experiencing of feeling comfortable being himself instead of the resistance of I need to be more like Kevin or I need to be
Yeah.
more like
Yeah.
someone else. And
Yeah.
I think how to be human at work is understanding that everything you are as a person, how you think, what you can do, what you cannot do, are things that shape you to be who you are, and they are your superpowers.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Getting over the cold a little bit still. So sorry about the cough. I think that's great. It makes me think about like, how Strength Finders, talks about, when you take the test, you essentially find out what your strengths are, and you usually do it in community with other people. And you find out these are my strengths, right, in these different areas. But then you think about the strengths of other people, right?
Mm,
As well, and then try to fit. And like, if you to have a cohesive team, you try to have people who have, strengths that balance each other out, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
in different ways. But I think about that, and I think I don't know if I think it requires an awareness, right? A
Hmm.
personal awareness, right? That's where it all starts. But I think it also builds an awareness of your surroundings and your sensing of other people.
Yeah,
And I think that's where empathy plays a big part.
yeah.
Um, because your instincts and intuition
Hmm.
is part of that too. You can know your strengths, but at the same time, if your gut feeling is telling you, you know what, this strategy might not be the best strategy right now because I'm getting all of these signals happening in the world. And I think the best way to do that is to be really mindful,
Hmm.
and show up in that present moment awareness
Yeah.
in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I agree. And that awareness, and that's what we need. The people who have the privilege, they need that awareness element, the empathy element, so that the other people. So I'll use the example. I came in to my job, and I'm leading a team of 15 people. And for me, each person is unique, each person is different, but they saw the same version of me, no matter who I'm talking to in one-on-ones and however I am in person.
Mhm.
And to the point where the folks in my company, when I met them in person 2 weeks ago, they're like, Kevin, it's like we've seen you in person a lot. This was the first time I was meeting them in person, but they
Mhm.
were like, because you come across so genuine, authentic personality through the Zoom, whatever, the video calling system, that if you are just yourself, no matter what the space, it'll come across no matter the medium. And I think that was my lesson I learned. And so allowing
Mhm.
the space to say like, hey, let's celebrate. One of the things I do is first thing I ask in my one-on-ones is like, what are we celebrating today? It can be a mistake we made. It can be something you
Mhm.
achieved. It can be something you learned. Let's talk
Mhm.
about that. Let's celebrate that, because it allows people to be like, humans make mistakes, humans learn lessons, humans do all these things, right?
Yeah. And I like starting off with celebration because
Yeah.
that reframes our mindset, right? Because when you go in one-on-ones, often it's like, oh, I'm going to get evaluated, right? I'm going to get something like somebody's going to be viewing me. And like as
Hmm.
humans, we kind of like scrunch up because it feels like somebody's evaluating and testing us. But micro interactions like that help build trust.
Hmm.
Say things like saying thank you to each other, and thank you for a great job done. Recognizing others in public and in like email form, celebrating your successes is really up there in some of the notes that I was having as
Yeah,
well.
great
So
point.
yeah,
Love that point.
yeah,
Recognition.
um, yeah, yeah, and like I think also there's this aspect of having fun, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
in your work, because life can be a slog. Work
Yeah.
can be a slog. It can be like so, drudgery, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that they say in this 12-step program I'm in for adult children of alcoholics is one of the promises they say if you keep working on yourself is that, and it's me every time, and it says, we will learn to play and have fun in our lives.
Yes. Yes. I
You know?
agree. And that's how I'm at. I'm at a space where I feel like I'm not working. I'm just living. And for me, living is fun, and I'm having fun doing it. And I love that. That's such a great. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, just
Yeah.
makes me think.
We're at the 15-minute mark. Jeez.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
But I do want to like I in interest of I know I want to go to the 20-minute mark because there's
Sure.
something I really want to hit on when
Yeah.
it comes to empathy, is that a lot of things in the coaching that I do and the people I talk to, like leaders and stuff like that, is that there's a lot of frustration and anger because you're centering yourself on leaders' decisions and things that are outside of your control. But what if a strategy that I like to say is like, what else could be going on here,
Mm-hmm.
right? That does nothing to do with you. Often, I even react sometimes with
Mm-hmm.
that. So the big nugget here is replace that frustration with empathy.
Yeah.
So when you're feeling that frustration, why would that person make a stupid move like that? Exchange that thought, like start thinking, like get curious, right? What else
Mm-hmm.
could be going on here that has nothing to do with you, right? She might not be aware of the impact, right, that's happening. um they might be having something going on inside of
Yeah.
themselves,
Yes.
like what
Yes.
happened to you, right? um so it's a magic way for us to remember that we're human. And sometimes we're brilliant in how we bring up something, but sometimes we make a fall, a
Yeah.
fall and stumble a little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you have that space where you trust each other and you're
Yeah.
open and have conflict, good healthy conflict, then you can speak up and say, this didn't feel right. So
Yeah.
just what I would say.
I'll share a quick story. So a couple months ago, there was some a situation that triggered me a past trauma, and I was really depressed for that week, and I was down, and a lot of stuff happened. But I went to work. I called into work, logged in, and did these things. But there was a day that I was just really struggling, and
Mm,
I couldn't sleep that week. It was really a bad week, and my team was doing a little celebration and meet up and everything, and I was supposed to go and be part of it. But
mm,
I was like, hey, I'm having a bad mental health day. I'm having a day that I can't do this. I need the space. I need to recoup. I need to do this. And I just
mhm.
shared that, being open. And that is being human at work. And I shared it. And then my team was like, totally understand. We get it. And so now they can feel comfortable. So when they're having
Yeah,
those down days or they stumbles, they can be like, Kevin, I'm having stumble. Can we skip this or can we do this? And I want us to have spaces where people feel comfortable doing that.
exactly. That's where we need to go.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, so much great conversation, and I'm sure we could talk about this for hours
Yes. But
and hours.
let's wrap up.
So yeah, I know. But thank you for joining us. Well, thank you, Kevin, for continuing to have these dialogues with me. I'm very thankful for this dialogue that we have on a weekly basis, and ability to have empathy for each other, right, as we go through the process. So, and thank you everybody for joining and being part of this empathy power up, whether you're watching it live with us or even later. We come at you almost every single Tuesday, barring no sickness, because it's the time of year for sickness. But we appreciate you spending the time with us and being here with us. And we'll catch you next week. Take care.